Hey there, and welcome back to Etsy and Ecom with the Professional Mom. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain and doing a real, honest review of my first quarter in 2025. What went really well, what flopped, and the lessons that I had to learn the hard way. Running an online business isn't all pretty Canva graphics and passive income dreams. Sometimes it's algorithm changes, slow sales, or that moment when you realize you've completely overcommitted yourself. So in this episode, we're diving into the good, the bad, and the ugly of quarter one, and I'll be sharing the wins, the struggles, and the straight up ouch moments that are shaping my strategy for the rest of the year. And here's the thing, whether you had an amazing first quarter or you're feeling like you just barely survived, I want you to use this as a chance to reflect on your own business, take what's working, fix what's not, and move forward with confidence. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and let's talk about what quarter one really looked like behind the scenes. If you're new here, I am Rebecca Boland, the voice behind The Professional Mom. I am a former corporate finance professional and have taken to several different passive income streams to grow diversified income while becoming a mom raising two young boys and being able to work on my flex time and building my own business from the comfort of my home. Now I am sharing all of that with you between this new podcast and my growing YouTube channel so that if you've ever thought about trying out various online income streams yourself, you have somebody alongside you for the journey. Now, if you've never heard of a good, bad, ugly review, it's a simple but powerful way to reflect on your progress. The good is all about the wins, the things that worked well and moved the needle forward. Then the bad covers the struggles and the roadblocks. What didn't quite go as planned, but it still taught us some valuable lessons. And then there's the ugly, just the really tough moments, the wake-up calls, the things that you wish you had done differently, but maybe that doesn't necessarily mean that they were horrible. So as I go through my own quarter one, I encourage you to think about your business too. What's working, what's not, and what lessons you can carry into the second quarter and beyond. So let's start with the fun part, the good. Let's jump right in and talk about the first of my two print-on-demand shops that I started in fourth quarter last year, so 2024. My two print-on-demand shops have different strategies, different niches, and different vibes overall. So even though I don't share the exact name of my shop because I don't want to skew the traffic stats on Etsy or anything like that, I will tell you that this first shop is very beachy, funny, sarcastic, and primarily focused on shirts as the main product right now. If I do a look back on the first 3 months of 2025, the good here is that I made 10 sales. And that's not huge. There are definitely gurus out there talking about how they've made $1,000 single days. But for those of you that are starting on your Etsy journey, and especially in print on demand, any sales you start to see feel like a win. So it's important to celebrate those. So for me, that looked like 10 sales in this shop. And the better thing was that 7 of them were in the last week of March. So while I did have an incredibly slow start to the beginning of the year, this last week picked up and brought in 7 new sales. A few of the good things there is that I was able to see that some of my earliest designs were the ones that were selling. So when you hear that designs can take 8, 12 weeks to potentially really get going on Etsy, that is exactly what I was seeing as well, because I didn't do most of these designs until January. So before December, I was primarily trying to stuff my shop for last minute Christmas gifts, and I did a lot of ornaments and mugs that were specifically Christmas oriented. So rolling into 2025, and I guess this transitions directly into the bad, I did not have the foresight in my shop to get moving on anything that people could be shopping for in the beginning of the year. So I had no evergreen products. I had nothing prepared for Valentine's Day. And that's why I just really didn't get any traction in the first 2 months. I started listing a lot of evergreen products at the beginning of January, and that's where just now here at the back end of March, so probably right at that 10 to 12 week mark, I am now seeing these sales from the things I posted all the way back then. Another thing that was bad in this shop is that my pricing was messy. I didn't have the best strategy, or actually I had such a good and intensive strategy that I was treating my small Etsy shop as if it was a large corporation and I had a lot of people to lean on. I would be able to change prices quickly, change marketing strategies quickly, and that's obviously not the case. So if you listen to one of my podcast episodes previously, if I've even posted it, it was just almost a rant about all of the crazy POD mistakes I was making early on. And in this particular case, I was trying to operate on the constant 50% off sales strategy to get Etsy to really show customers that big flashing badge that said sale ends soon, 50% off, and give buyers a sense of urgency. But because I wasn't going into my shop regularly, because I do have shiny object syndrome, there were a lot of days that I didn't have a sale going on in my shop at all. So that means something like a Comfort Colors t-shirt that should have been running between $25 and $30 wasn't on sale and was being marked at $50 or $60 depending on the item. And obviously, especially with low sales and low reviews as a startup store, this was absolutely not going to bring any conversions if I even got those few early eyeballs on the products. Another bad thing of first quarter is that I was willing to invest in ads because I do have a handful of products that I know should sell well. I've done the research, I've done enough behind the scenes to be very positive that if I can get them in front of customers, then they will convert. However, so far this year, I have spent about $50 on ads between January and the end of March, so over 3 months, which isn't bad, but none of those have actually converted into revenue. So that is a negative and definitely means that there's some more work to be done in ads. But again, I know that I had that money that I was willing to put out there, and I was able to get a lot of data on what things were working, what styles were showing, which of my products are at least getting more views from those ads. And it's at least helped me to find a direction to go in. So let's talk about the ugly, which essentially goes back to the relaunch of this shop. This is an old legacy Etsy shop that I had started, and I had it on vacation mode for I think at least 2 years while I went on maternity leave and had my 2 little boys, and then I've switched into digital products, so I was not in a hurry to relaunch it. But I finally relaunched it as a print-on-demand shop, which is not what it was previously. So this relaunch happened the beginning of October 2024, and it means that even though I reopened the shop, none of the products I had previously listed, because they were all handmade, were viable to relaunch. So I did have to work really hard to scale everything up, but like I said, from an ugly perspective, I was working harder, not smarter. I was just trying to batch create to get listings in time for Christmas, and I was able to get a few of those sales, but I've always been chasing the trends and 2 steps behind where I know that I should be ahead of the curve. So when I dove deep in the beginning of January and I started finding keywords, I was creating for every keyword imaginable. The ugly here is almost this positive negative, because what happened to me is that I knew I was so deep in the weeds that I had every trend in the back of my mind. I was analyzing to the depths of Etsy. I was using my Everbee tool, and every time one of the Etsy women that I love to follow posted a new piece of information or piece of content on YouTube or their podcasts, I was so excited. I was texting my best friend saying, oh my gosh, they just said that this trend is about to blow up And I created something for that 3 days ago. So I knew that I was figuring these things out. But I'm sitting here in my shop and I'm looking at these 200 or 300 listings and I'm pulling out my hair because I'm saying, I have Coquette, I have Coastal Grandma and now Coastal Granddaughter, I have Coastal Cowgirl, I have Old Money Aesthetic, I have more Grand Millennial Toile du Joie, chinoiserie, blue ribbon bows than you can imagine. If there was a key phrase, I had it. The fisherman aesthetic was supposed to be big right off the jump from the Pinterest trends boards. Well, I jumped deep into creating for sardines and tinned fish, and you can laugh about those, and it doesn't mean I understand it, but I saw the keywords, I saw the demand, so I created. And still, none of these were selling. So I'm finally getting the sales within this past week of March, and I'm hoping that that continues between one, it actually being a new sales season again, as opposed to the January and quiet February months. I'm hoping we're on the up. Two, I'm creating and being consistent about my creations. So even if I am 8, 10, 12 weeks behind, I'm at least now at the point where I have products that were created 12 weeks ago that hopefully will start getting seen. And three, I said from the beginning, this shop is very beachy, ocean-inspired, plus funny and sarcastic shirts primarily. So right now, I don't even have sweatshirts and hoodies in my shop, which would have been probably better sellers for the winter seasons. And we're finally rolling in, or at least in the US, finally starting to roll into warmer spring and summer seasons, which will be more aligned with those designs. The big picture about this shop is that ultimately, even though I wouldn't necessarily call it imposter syndrome, it is hard for me to come on and commit to this podcast episode and in the back of my mind, recognize that I haven't got a sale for the day. How am I supposed to continue telling you that I know what I'm talking about and I know what's going to trend and sell if I am not getting the sales when I create those exact things? But I record these anyway, and I put this out there for you, and I shared this transparency behind my journey because there are a few takeaways for me. One being that I am still having so much fun with my Etsy shops, and I think that is the key. That's top priority because every day it makes it so easy for me to remain committed. And while I might not be consistent about being in the same shop and about my number of listings posted and when, I am consistent in that I wake up in the morning, bring my kids to daycare, work on my shop nonstop all day, put them to bed, and continue to work on my shop until I fall asleep. And it's because it's fun to me. But another lesson is that it does take time, and the research might be accurate, but you still have to put in the work. I know that my keywords are strong, but I also know that there's a lot that I have left to learn about design and creating for different styles. I also have recognized that I have one or two go-to styles, but if you follow some of the other big names on YouTube, like Cassie Johnson, who I love to watch, she says if you find a niche, you should be creating 8 to 12 designs to compete against that immediately. And I'll sit down, I'll create 2 or 3, feel really excited that I have something in mind that I know is selling now. And then I'll either forget to create another handful, another 7, 8, 9, or even worse, half the time I will not end up listing them very quickly because I'll wait until there's a bigger batch to post, or I'll rethink about my design or reanalyze whether it's any good. And the more and more my lesson here that I am sharing with you, because we are going to learn it and stay true to it together, is that you should not overanalyze your designs. And no matter how perfect or imperfect it is, you don't know if it's going to sell until it's out there. And honestly, for 20 cents an Etsy listing for something that may or may not sell, that is the lowest risk you're going to get eyes on a product in most marketplaces. especially if you were going to have to drive your own traffic to your own website. So even if it's ugly, just put it out there. And then honestly, even if something like a typo or something was on it, half the time a customer who was interested in the product will message you about it and say, hey, I loved this, but I noticed it was incorrect. Will it be printed correctly? And that gives you the opportunity to say, A, somebody likes it. B, absolutely, it's fixed. Thanks so much. Here's 10% off. Please purchase right now. So with this shop, I'm going to spend the second quarter focusing largely on group shirts and vacation tees. I had already branched out into cruise shirts, and I'm creating group listings out of them. And I am going to really try to stay focused on creating consistently within smaller sub-niches at a time and batching them to the degree that I batch them and then instantly launch them. Right after this, I will be putting together another podcast episode talking about specifics for quarter two goal setting, so I won't get into all of the details here. But I do like to make sure that after you do an analysis of your shop, like a good, bad, ugly, you give yourself some key takeaways, whether they are action items or specific goals. So in this case, I can look back at what I've done, what I didn't do, what was bad, what was messy, and I can commit to myself that for the next 30 days, the month ahead, and then the next 90 days through the end of June for the quarter, I have a clear roadmap or at least a clear goal so that I can outline a roadmap that gets me there. Now let's talk about my second POD shop that was started in November last year. This one was started honestly because I was thinking that my vacation mode shop I just discussed with you was being stifled in the Etsy algorithm after being on vacation mode. There were tons of listings that I put up that I know should have been trending, that I know should have been making sales, and I was just convinced that it would be easier to start a new shop than to try to revamp one that had been shut for multiple years. But since I was opening a new one anyway, I also used it as an opportunity to launch into a different niche. So this other shop is much more sentimental, much more giftable, and much more in the life milestone niche, even though I am still trying out a few different things there as well. This shop, I have decided to focus on more coffee mugs as my primary cornerstone product because they lend themselves more to giftables. Plus, I've got the first shop that I was working on shirts and apparel, so I thought, let me try something else in this one. So the good for this shop is that in the past quarter, I made 8 sales. And again, that is not a lot to write home about. And my first shop made 10 sales. This one made 8. You can see that it's taken 3 months for me to even get these first 8 sales. This is, of course, completely organic. I don't have friends, family, social media that know about this shop. It is just truly putting designs on products that I think should sell and launching them. With those 8 sales, 7 of them went to a single customer the last week of March. So similarly to my first shop, this one has had not a lot of traction, and all of a sudden this last week of March picked up and got in front of a customer who bought 7 different shirts. I did say I started with shirts in this store, so even though I am trying to change my cornerstone, those listings were the ones that were 10 to 12 weeks back. So I did see a lot of the same time lag as with the first shop. But the awesome thing is that this one customer loved all of those items so much that she went through and gave each one of them a 5-star review. So that one buyer was able to get me my first 7 5-star reviews. And suddenly I have this nice batch of small but growing social proof in my brand new shop. The bad is that my ad spend is definitely not escalating traffic as desired. Again, I was willing to put a little bit of money out there just to try and get my products in front of people and get some early sales, even if I had to pay for them. And I am currently willing to spend $25 a day on Etsy ads with 50 listings that are included in that. And in the entire month of March, I only spent $2 total. Total. So even if you are willing to put in some money behind the scenes, I do think that some of the listings have to have some level of traction for it to really make sense or to really benefit you. Like my other shop, I also bounced around so much that I was not consistently listing in this shop in late December, early January. So that's just bad on my part of focus and kind of commitment to it. But let me tell you, I have to talk about this shop essentially mostly in the realm of the ugly, because in order to quickly launch this shop, I bulk uploaded a few hundred listings with commercial use POD rights that I did purchase from other sellers. So I know that I have the rights to sell these designs. However, because I was working to bulk upload, I mix and matched some niches, and I'm only now noticing that a large handful of the products were not even listed accurately. Not only were they not optimized, but they truly were not accurate. So, for example, several of my products, we're talking at least 200 or 300 of my first 400 products, I'm now noticing either didn't use all 13 tags, some didn't have completed titles, so they simply said short phrase, comfort color shirt, and we're missing more than half the character opportunities. And many of them were tagged completely incorrectly because I mix and matched a couple of niches together. So things that should have been a religious Christian mom Christmas t-shirt was showing up as a new kindergarten teacher first day of school shirt. So they weren't even reaching the same target audience, the same holiday, the same purpose, the same gifting occasion. And that's how a majority of these were spending the first 4 months. Now, the good news is it's still early on and I'm catching this, so I am able to fix everything up. But I am just now hitting 4 months of that shop being open. So those earliest listings that I did have in my shop are starting to roll off. So I think there's about 250 listings right now that I finally just got my shop up to about 500 listings, and 250 of them rolled off. And I cannot just go in and bulk renew them because, like I said, they are not right. So it's a blessing and a curse. The takeaway here is that I highly recommend that you use manual renewal options for your shop, especially as you're first getting started, because that forces you to take a few minutes to reassess each listing before you renew it and either take it down or try to update the tags or make sure that it's correct in general, make sure the pricing is still up to date and competitive. All of the things that otherwise it is all too easy to push to the back of your mind once you have a listing that's kind of in set it and forget it mode. Now, all that is ugly enough, but what it's also triggering is this drop in traffic that I was starting to consistently see because I went from 500 listings to 250 overnight, and those 250 are going to take me a while to kind of get back in shop and optimized. So first quarter has brought several very different lessons from my 2 new print-on-demand shops, and there has been a steep learning curve. And while we do tend to want instant traffic, there have also been plenty of days that I have said, thank goodness I did not get a sale on X, Y, or Z because they were priced completely inaccurately, because I forgot a 0 at the end of a digit. There are all these little things that pop up and actually save us from ourselves if we are trying to move too fast. So while I am trying to work smart and try to be aggressive with my growth, which again, I'll talk about in my upcoming second quarter goals episode, I do want to be more structured and more thoughtful about my batch uploads and my batch listings so that I know once they're done they can remain strong listing, strong potential opportunities to get sales 4 months from now and next renewal over and over again. If you're new to print on demand, or even if you're in the digital or handmade seller space, what I want you to take away from today is that the end of a quarter is a really great opportunity to take a day and look back at your shop to see what was working and what was not. I am somebody who actually really likes the data and the numbers. I like to live in the finances. I like to play with marketing strategies and different sales figures. But a lot of people are not like that, and you definitely do not have to be successful on Etsy. In fact, half the time I'm doing more analysis than creating and posting, which is my personal hurdle. But if you are the opposite of that and you are somebody who doesn't look at your numbers and you're just going about your day, even if all you do is 4 times a year sit down at the end of March, at the end of June, at the end of September, at the end of December, and look back quarter by quarter, I think it is a really important, valuable CEO level exercise to do if you are trying to bring what is currently a side hustle into a scalable business that will eventually replace your full-time income. For me, I am able to look back on my lessons from these shops and use it as an opportunity, A, to correct some of the issues that I wouldn't have caught on a day-to-day basis, but B, to refocus myself and realign, and recognizing that yes, I will surely have more shiny object syndrome and ADD going on across my shops. At least for right now, I can regenerate a roadmap for the next 3 months based on where I am today and try to reset in the same sense that I said my second shop was originally going to also be shirts, but I've recognized that mugs are easier, faster for me to create, can hit a different niche market, gives me a different creative outlet, and I think is more giftable, which I find might be the opposite seasonality of my beachy group vacation tees in my first shop. I think this is about it for today. I know it was a lot of insight into my shops, and I appreciate you sticking with me and listening to this all the way through. I usually don't love talking so much about my shops because I know it's not the same as your experience. I know that it would help to see my exact shop. I know it would help to know my exact products. But ultimately, I think just hearing how other entrepreneurs think about their businesses, getting little tidbits here and there about what you might want to analyze or what struggles you might be having, and be able to bond with another entrepreneur in the same way, it definitely helps me. So I continue to share my story and hopefully can continue to relate it to your journey in one way or another. I am curious to know if you have done a good, bad, ugly analysis for your shop, or if you have a different technique that you like to review at the end of every month or every quarter. So as always, I am going to have my contact information in the show notes below, and I would love for you to DM me, say hi. I am still getting better about being on social media, but every time I see that even just one person has listened to an episode, it really makes me feel positive and excited that some of these words are getting into somebody's ears and hopefully meeting them exactly where they needed a friend at this exact step in their Etsy journey as well. So if you are new here, if you haven't already subscribed or left a review, it would mean a lot to me to help my little fledgling podcast grow. And until next time, thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.